I'm so excited to be here. Such an honor.
And we're drinking matcha lattes.
Yes, I love matcha. So when I found out that you loved matcha, I'm like, we are twinsies. Like, we're on that level together.
I love it too, because I just started, I was telling you guys obviously earlier, I just started drinking it. I'm absolutely obsessed. I love it. Now, me and my quarantine buddy, we do, that's what, me and my quarantine buddy, we do matcha lattes and turmeric. Life-changing.
I love it. And you put turmeric in here too, right?
Dude, I put a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't just put a little. Like, do you shop at Trader Joe's by any chance?
I do.
Okay, so their seasoning. Do you buy their seasoning? They have very, open holes. Like, the actual, when you dump the turmeric in, a lot comes out. And I do, 4 dumps.
4 dumps?
Yeah.
Dang.
I should probably use a different word than dumps, but whatever. Nonetheless, 4 shakes,
it's pretty good.
Which is crazy, because it's more turmeric than I would use in a dish. So if you think about that, you're like, what the heck? But some weird reason they mask each other really well.
Well, what's fascinating to me is that it's not clumpy, right? I don't know what you did to it, but normally...
Well, sweetheart, I don't have a bamboo whisk, and I just got in the mail you can probably see it from there, the whisker, the frother. That's what it is. I just got it in the mail, but I fucked up, and it needs batteries, and I couldn't find any. So that was a no-go for today. But I will be going to Target and getting them.
But it's still really good. So like I said, whatever you're doing, whatever magic touch you're doing to the fork, are you using a fork?
Oh, it's not that sweet today. That was my first sip. See what I mean? I really can't handle hot things.
Really? Is it really hot for you?
No, now it's fine.
Oh, okay.
But before, when it was steaming, usually it's a little sweeter, but we'll go with it. If you want any sweetener, it's in there. I'll cut that out. Okay, so you have a book coming out in less than a month.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
First, how do you feel?
I feel really amazing. I literally just got the book yesterday. We have it in front of us.
I have a copy! Yay! I'm so excited. And I was saying, obviously, earlier, too, this is the first time that I've obviously had people that have had books on before, but this is the first time that I'm in the process of seeing what it's like and being like, whoa, I have one of the first copies in my hand.
You literally have the first copy. You're the first person.
I feel
let's soak that in for a second.
That's so crazy. And it's so cool because from what I understand about the experience, and you will elaborate way more than I ever could, is that you really do put your whole life and soul into something like this. And to see it come to fruition is literally like birthing a child in a way.
Yes, exactly.
But a little less messy.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know. I don't know about
exactly.
that.
I don't know about that because I literally felt like it was a 9-month process. And that's also why, I created a video on, my book baby because it was funny because I think one of my followers, or I forgot who it was, but they messaged me oh my gosh, how do you feel? I feel like you're kind of birthing this thing to the world. And it gave me that idea. It really took me 9 months to write this thing, to put this together. And I swear to you, I was just telling you this, that authors don't get enough credit for the stuff that they do because it's my whole energy writing this, and then it just took its entire team. And I feel it's amazing.
Downplayed.
It's totally downplayed.
It's downplayed. And
right.
Especially, I think there's a difference of a book that's telling a specific story, or a book that's telling a section of your life, or a break off of a teaching, or something like that. When you're really putting your all into a book, everything that you know, everything that you want to teach, everything that you want to give to someone, it's such a wholesome experience, and it takes such a piece of you. You're giving so much to it. So that 9-month process, it's that's what you're thinking about day in, day out.
Oh yeah. And I'm having my launch team read the book right now, and I'm just imagining myself in people's rooms, in their I'm in their bed, but literally
you're hearing my voice when they sleep.
Exactly.
You're hopefully not literally, but they are.
No, they totally are. And I'm I feel like people are at least this week, because they're reading it and all that stuff, and so it's they're binging. I'm I feel like the new Netflix, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think there's something so different. Well, because I think one thing is a reader appreciates what goes into a book.
Yeah.
And a reader gives that undivided attention to a book. Like if you're going to read something, you have to give it your undivided attention. It's not like a video on Instagram. It's not like a clip on YouTube. It's not like a TED Talk. It's its own thing. Mm-hmm. You can't be distracted or you miss it. You have to physically read it. So it's a different level of attentiveness that your reader and your audience is going to have towards you. And it's like all eyes, all ears. Like they're going to be completely engulfed in all of the things that you're saying. So it's exciting and it's cool that you're going to be able to change so many lives.
Oh gosh, don't even say it like that, because I'm just like, I was thinking about this. I literally could not sleep yesterday. Like, I kid you not, because I was just so excited. I mean, you know, I think I told you that, like, I'm building a launch squad right now, and literally there's this girl in there, and she read like the first 4 chapters, and she literally manifested 45,000, and she put it in the group yesterday. And like, I couldn't go to sleep yesterday because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting goosebumps talking about this, because she's like, I like implemented everything that you said, I did it right away. And I'm like, this is what happens like when you literally like read something, and like she's been following me, so it's kind of like I'm getting chills, because it's like, this is someone that knew me and like followed me throughout this process. Or even if it's someone new, like it's just like everyone coming at different angles, but like still reading the same piece of content, if that makes sense.
And just think about, like, that is literally one example, and it's in your launch squad, and it's like the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
Think of how many lives this will affect when anybody can get their hands on it. And it's like, this is somebody that's obviously followed you and has been interested in your content and has been listening, but this book is the thing that changed it. This book is the thing that allowed her to manifest and call in and actually receive $45,000.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I think that's the crazy part to me, is the fact that this book as a vehicle helped her do that. And it's like, the things that you've been teaching are all condensed into one thing, and it's this tangible item that people can dive into and then get results from. Mm-hmm. That's different. That's different than any other content that we can make in the world, because it's a whole nother level. It adds a whole nother level to it.
Yeah, and I also think on piggyback on what you're saying, is that I feel like writing a book right now is kind of underrated, and everyone's so focused on like the next social media platform, which I still feel like, you know, people should be on, right? Like right now I think TikTok is all the rage, and like there's people are trying to learn the best strategy and all that stuff. But in my opinion, I think that when it comes to writing a book, it's like no one's paying attention to that right now. Mm-hmm. And so like, if anyone wants to write a book and get their word out there and really become an expert, you can totally do that. And it's possible, because I don't have like 100 million followers. I'm not like that like big, you know? And for me to write something and be recognized, and like now it's kind of moving me up, like it's
established.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
Something that establishes you as that next level player in the game.
Yep.
And I think that's huge too, is not just like what it takes to write the book, but we talked what it takes to properly market a book and get it in front of the eyes of people. And it's like, well, why this book? Why, when you see it on a shelf, do you want to buy this book? Why, when you read a review, do you want to buy this book? Like, never mind the person that had that review, she's then going to say, oh, my sister, you need to read this.
Yeah.
Or, oh, my friend, you need to read this. Oh, you're struggling with money or your mindset, you need to read this.
Yeah.
So now we've talked obviously about books in general and what an accomplishment it is, even just to get to this point. What made you want to do this? What made you want to create this book? Was there a need in the world that you just thought you had to share this information with? Was it something that was always on your heart? Like, what was the driving force for you?
Yeah, so I write about it in the intro of the book, but, you know, just to keep it short, about a year ago, I was coaching clients, and I would say like half of them were getting the results that they wanted, and then the other half weren't. And the thing was that I was teaching the same type of strategy, right? I was teaching them the same thing. And I was like, why is it that only half of my clients were getting results? And I realized that it was because that they really cultivated a good money mindset, and their mindset was on point. Yeah. And I talk about this all the time, but I really believe that, you know, mindset is success is 80% mindset, and the 20% 10% is the strategy and the mechanics. Because when you're not in alignment and you operate and you do things just cause, you're not going to get to where you want to go, and it's not going to be putting off the same type of energy, right? Like that's also why I don't think how-tos are enough. There's a really excellent book which really inspired this book as well. It's called If How-Tos Were Enough by Brian Clemmer.
Oh, I've never read it, but that sounds interesting.
And it's really like a short read, and that was like my favorite book ever, like as like a young teen.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend it. But it was because of my clients, number one, and then number two, it was also because I wrote a letter to my future daughter. This was like 3 years ago when I first started my business, and it was funny because like that was my why, right? Like I don't have a daughter now, but if I were to think about like if I were to have a daughter, like how would I want to teach her? Like what were the things that like would you know constitute as like me being a good mom, in my opinion. And so this book, I actually like wrote a letter to her in the beginning. So like you'll have to read it to like...
Oh, I'll probably cry. I'm like the strongest person I know, but like that stuff, heart-wrenching to me.
Oh yeah. I mean that's literally like the driving force, right? Like when I woke up and I would feel depressed to like write. Like there were days, I kid you not, Liv, where I couldn't even get out of bed to write, because writing a book takes a lot of discipline, right? Like it's not like...
Kind of the most.
Yeah, and then it's also your energy. Like to write well, you have to be in the good energy. You have to have discipline. You need to be committed.
And then just getting into that flow state too. Even if you've done everything right up into the point, sometimes it still doesn't work.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so I feel like it's, you know, you need to have a good like why, right? And so it's funny because I'm not a parent, so I have no idea, like I don't have any idea what it's like. But if I were to put myself in the shoes of a parent, like that was my driving force. Like I don't want to leave this world without leaving a legacy, and if it's just for my daughter, then that's enough for me. And I think that this book is literally me leaving something behind.
Oh my gosh. I love that. And I'm a very sentimental person.
Yeah.
So something like that is just heartwarming, that was a big inspiration to you, is not the mother that I am, because I'm not, but the mother that I hope to be one day. And what you want to teach and what you want to learn.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what's the content in the book, and not just in a sense of, oh, this is what's in the book, but this is your life's work. This is what you've learned through coaching clients. Like this is what you've learned through building your business. And those are the tangible lessons that people can learn from. So where did it start for you? Was this a bit like, did you always have a good money mindset? Did you grow up with a good money mindset? Was this something that you learned through coaching? You're like laughing. You're like, no fucking way. You're like, there's not a chance in hell.
Oh my God. I'm probably like I grew up, here's the thing. The crazy thing is I grew up in a pretty middle class, you know, family. Like my parents.
Sometimes I think that's the worst.
Oh my God. It totally is. There's this book by Robert Kiyosaki. It says like B students become like, anyways, I don't.
Oh. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I know what you're talking about.
Like A students work for C students, B students work for the government, and C students become like, I don't know, like entrepreneurs or like business. I forgot the name of the book, but it's by Robert Kiyosaki. Got it. But growing up, you know, I grew up in a 90% majority like Asian community. And I remember growing up like hating being Asian because number one, I was actually bullied in high school by this Asian kid. And, you know, I think that during that time, I just was really timid. I couldn't find my voice at the time. That was, you know, and I was like, dude, this sucks. Like, I hate being Asian. Like, there's this kid that's bullying me.
Who's also Asian.
Yeah.
Well, now she's writing a book, so.
And also, like, my dad, like, he had a really poor money mindset, you know, and, like, I love my dad, you know, and he, I just feel like like, again, I don't want to just say it's Asians, but like, you know, as a minority and as someone that grew up like thinking that, okay, you have to get straight A's, and if you don't get straight A's, then like you're just fucked in life. Yeah. Can I curse on this show?
Oh, please don't.
Okay.
Open door. Anything goes.
So just growing up, I remember specifically, I was 7 years old, seeing my dad. We were eating dinner one day, and like the phone rang. He gets off from his seat, like super pissed, picks up the phone, and was like a telemarketer. And my dad was just like angry. And when you're like 7 years old, you're still absorbing your environment and the people around you. And ever since that day, every time a telemarketer would call, he would like prank them. Like he would like press on the buttons of the phone so that they would hear like that pinging noise, and it's like annoying for them, and they would hang up. So like he just would never say anything. Like it was just like, so the way I saw him treat other people and other like salespeople or whatever the case may be, I was like, I don't ever want to go into sales. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not something I ever want to do.
And then I say this all the time. When I talk with clients about trauma, I always say, don't understand your trauma from the age and the brain capacity that you have right now. You literally have to go back to 3 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old, and be like, what were the conclusions that I was physically able to make at that time? And so even at 7 years old, you're like, wow, there's a million things that you can kind of extract from that instance, whether it was once or it's all the time. And you're like, not only do these people bother people, but they're greedy. They're trying to get something from you. They create anger. Like all of these things are those small calculations that you make that then create the money mindset later on.
Yeah.
And like limiting beliefs.
Right.
Too.
It's very subtle too, right? Because the thing is that, you know, I heard somewhere that from the ages of 0 to 7, like we are like sponges, right? We don't have the capacity to be like, oh, like my dad is just upset because that's who he is, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like as a 7-year-old, that's not what you're
thinking.
Like
conceptualize it.
Exactly. So it's like, I'm seeing him do that. I also saw like the way he like felt about money whenever like he had to pay bills, and like I couldn't even take more than 5-minute showers. Like that's how intense it was. And so for me, money was always a struggle. Like, okay, how, like I can never get it.
I think a lot of people relate to that too. And I think it's an important piece because the middle class, I've heard this a lot, which is why I'm bringing it up. People will always say like, oh, I grew up middle class. And they'll explain it in a sense of like, it wasn't as bad, but it wasn't as good. And it's like, no, but middle class isn't that far off with the money mindset specifically, because they may have a home instead of an apartment.
Exactly.
They may be able to lease a car instead of buying something that's super, super cheap. They may have those slight differences, but the actual fear is still the same. And typically middle class people come from a less than middle class upbringing. So, and I think that's like the beauty of generations, is like every mom, every dad, they want to do better for their kids than what they had. And I think that they do, but I think that those beliefs, that money mindset is ingrained at such a young age. And like, I know like my mom did better than her parents. And they did better than their parents. But their parents were immigrants off a boat that they were just grateful to come to America.
Exactly.
So it's like and that's not that far off. So it's like, your dad yelling at these telemarketer guys, or just like beep, 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 like doing these things and struggling with money. It's so much more common than you think. And a lot of people pass it off as like, oh, money wasn't a problem because we were middle class. And it's like, that's also not true. Like you may still have a lot of issues with money and your relationship with money, regardless of where you are on the pay scale.
Yeah. And actually, I want to say that, you know, you mentioned earlier how middle class may be like worse than like, you know, how would
for drive.
Right. And that's the reason why.
If you come from nothing.
And I totally agree with you. And the reason why is because, like I said, like when you, like my parents were immigrants, right? Like both of my parents were. And to grow up in a middle class environment in which like, it looked like we had enough money, right? Like it looked like it.
That's the thing though.
Exactly.
Looks.
But our behaviors, or seeing my dad's behaviors, didn't match up to like what was happening, right? So it was confusing as a child. It was so confusing. Weird. And it's also like why would I work harder when I'm comfortable, right? Like my environment is comfortable. And I think that's like the one thing I feel like a lot of people in the middle class can't get to that next level. It's not because they can't. It's really because like it takes a level of discomfort for you to get to that next level, right? And if you're already comfortable and you just you need the discipline to get uncomfortable, that's another like stretch that you have to do on your own.
It's so crazy. Okay, so let's go back to your dad. Like obviously you didn't have the money mindset growing up. So when did you recognize, oh, this may not be the thing that helps me. Like, I need to change this. I need to evolve. I need to grow. What were some of the things for you that was, okay, my money mindset is something I need to work on?
Yeah. So actually how that happened was when I was in the Peace Corps, when I was in Armenia. So right after, university, I was working for a year, and then I actually like left and I went to a place called Armenia. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or know
My
where
best
it
friend's
is.
from there.
Oh, no way. Okay, cool.
She's not, but her family's, she lived there at the beginning of her life and then moved here.
Oh, so she's Armenian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Armenian and Russian.
Oh, nice. Okay, so at the time, I didn't know anything about Armenia. Like, all I knew was that, like, the Kardashians are from Armenia,
God.
right?
We're talking about the Kardashians. Jesus. It does make sense, though, because there's a huge population in Glendale, and the Kardashians are some of the more famous Armenians of this time.
Yeah, especially if, like, you've never met an Armenian person ever, and, like, you grew up in just an Asian community. It's kind of like, what is Armenia, right?
Well, yeah. Even just that, like, I always think that's so cool. Whether it's a minority group or it's a small town or whatever that keeps you in a small bubble, it's like, what's the thing that then breaks you out of it? Because you begin to realize, oh, the world is a bigger place than I thought it was.
And that's also why I joined the Peace Corps, right? See, this is the thing. Like, nothing happened in which that I was like, I need to get... All I felt was like, I just felt like I was living in a bubble, and I've always been the type of person that was such a huge rebel. Like, my mom always says, like, compared to my brother and I, like, my brother is like the one that's like super, like, sticks to my parents, like, he follows the rules, and then I'm the wild child. And so, after university, I'm like, I need to get the fuck out of here and, like, experience, like, what it's like to live outside of LA.
Yeah, you're like, I want it all. And they're like, what? And you're like, I don't know, I just need to experience everything.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I need to find myself, right? And, like...
I do love that, though.
Yeah.
I really love that. I think it's downplayed. Because it's like that corny, I need to find myself, whatever. If you never move out of the place that you grew up, you don't know the world. I don't care how you want to phrase it, but you have to do something. Yes. I don't care
100%.
if it's a charity trip. I don't care if it's a vacation. I don't care if it's college or going into the Peace Corps or whatever. Live in a big city. Live in a small city. Live in, like, a farm town. Live overseas. Yeah. Like, go places and do things. It's the way that you really understand people and understand culture and understand the world. And I think it humbles you.
Oh,
at least
for
it's humbled
sure.
me.
100%.
I'm like, it humbles every single person.
Well,
maybe not.
The ironic thing was that, like, because I had such a poor money mindset, seeing the way my dad was interacting with money, I was like, I want to join the Peace Corps because when I'm a Peace Corps volunteer, I could just help people and, like, I don't have to care about money, right?
Ooh.
That was literally my thought.
Sneaky.
Right. And so the universe totally served me, like, a different, like, challenge, because when I got to the Peace Corps, when I got to Armenia, my job was to help women entrepreneurs make money. So it was so ironic how I was trying to escape the US. Like, I'm just going to, like, help people, like, in a third world country.
Yep.
And then I was placed in an environment that was, like, poorer than how I grew up, and seeing how important money is for women that have to, like, raise their kids on their own, and, like, how to empower them to make their own money so that they could survive, essentially. And so I learned, like, the importance of money through that experience. And then on top of that, I forgot to mention this, but, growing up, my dad had the poor money mindset, but my mom actually had an okay mindset, right? But what was interesting was, as a child, I didn't see my mom work. And so I never took money advice from her. Yes. Like, so my dad was the one that was the breadwinner. My mom had money, but she decided to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And so she was actually stock trading and doing all this stuff, and I had no idea, right?
Ooh.
What's crazy is she would, like, tell me all this advice about money. This is how I learned about Feng Shui. So, like, growing up, I did learn about Feng Shui. But I did, like, totally ignored her. I'm like, this is a bunch of bullshit. This is a bunch of fluff. Because I was, like, seeing as a child that my dad was making all the money. So I'm like, I should take financial advice from my dad.
Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't until I was in the Peace Corps. I know, it's, like, a kind of confusing story, but...
No, it makes total sense.
Yeah. So when I was there, I was, like, missing my parents. I was, like, Skyping my mom. And then that's when I was like, you know what? Like, maybe I should learn more about Feng Shui so I could help these women and, like, energy, and then also, like, all that stuff. And so I started taking these, like online classes with my mom, and then also a Feng Shui consultant at the time. And that's literally how it happened. Like, that was how it happened. And to be honest with you, it wasn't, like, a one-time thing, right? Like, I feel like years of generation of, like, money mindset trauma, it doesn't take, like, 1 year, or like, it takes time. It's, like, an ongoing process. And it's still an ongoing process.
It's like working out. I literally, in my podcast, I compare everything to a muscle. Everything is built like a muscle. Like, the more you use it, the stronger you get. If you move away from it and you don't do anything, you're gonna suffer. Like, that muscle is gonna suffer. It's gonna get weaker.
Exactly.
So with something like this, the biggest step is always the self-awareness. You have to know where you're currently at, but then it's the repetition of that day and then that year and then that fucking decade of making money and rebuilding some of the habits that you have around money.
Yep, exactly.
So Feng Shui.
Yeah.
That's how it came into your life. Obviously, your mom was like, "Can you listen to me? Like, anytime now."
It took me going to another country to learn about my own, like, you know, stuff that I was learning as a child.
I like it too, though, because it's like sometimes we're distracted by the flashy thing instead of the truest thing. And in that sense, it's almost like your mom and your dad. You're like, well, I thought because he was the breadwinner, I thought that was going to be the most sound advice. That was going to be the most helpful advice. And we see that a lot in the entrepreneurship community. It's like, oh, that guy drives a Lambo and he talks about whatever business online. And there's value to that for sure, but not always. Who's the happiest? Who's the most successful? Who is the most fulfillment? Like, those are the people that I want to learn from.
Oh, yeah,
because
for sure.
You need it all. And it's kind of interesting because that's like your mom in this sense.
She's She's like, I had no idea.
She's like, it just took you all these years to figure it out, but I was just waiting.
And that's what I love about my mom, too, because she was never the type of mom to be like, you have to learn this now. And, like, she wasn't ever forceful. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, my parents were so different, right? And so I feel like it's like the yin and the yang, like...
that's in your book, too.
Yes, that is in my book.
I read one of the bullet points on the back.
Yeah, and here's the thing, though. Yin and yang is something that I feel like you need to experience both in order for you to, like, to see the growth that you want.
Can you explain what yin and yang is?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's overused and would it be understood? What would be the word? You're the author here, not me.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Understood.
So
like, what the fuck is this girl talking about?
So yin and yang, like most people think it's like opposites, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like black and white, right? It's so easy to look at the symbol and be like, well, it's black and it's white, right? It's opposites. How I like to look at yin and yang is that in life, like you need to have both things in order for you to like go about your life. And that's also why you see like the dots in the middle of each color, right? Because within the hardships, which is the more darker side or the more masculine side, or whatever the case may be, like you need to still have the other side, right? And if you don't have both of those things, they're opposites, but they're also opposites in a way that they need each other.
It's like the polarity and the magnetism within yourself, and then also with others and your career and your loved ones and your relationships. I feel like it is applicable to everything, and it's like the true balance of life. Like, and I'm not super educated on the yin and yang, but from what yin and yang, right?
Yeah, some people say yin and yang, like...
Okay, who knows?
You can say it however you want. I'm not going to be like, you said it wrong, you know what I mean?
I know I talk about it in a way that is like the tangible work, the hard go-getting stuff. I talk about balance in this way.
Yeah.
Where it's like the really like, no bullshit, be real with yourself, what's going on, what do you want? And then also like the feeling. Like, how do you feel? How is this resonating with you? If you looked inward, what would the deepest parts of you say? Like, what is the energy with things? What is the feeling? What is the intuition?
Right.
And I bridge that gap a lot in the stuff that I do.
Yeah.
And I know that kind of plays a role as well, because everything in life is about the balance.
Oh, yeah. And so to piggyback on that, right? So here's what I think. Like, I feel like people don't like to be, like, immersed in the dark side, but you need that in order for you to push through to the other side. So let me explain that a little bit further. So yin and yang is about balance, right? And some people think that balance is like, okay, that means that like I need to like not experience bad things and not experience like too much of a good thing, and I have to achieve that healthy balance. In my opinion, I think balance is that you need actually both extremes, because in those situations, that's when you can really like be grateful or to like experience like, hey, this is how I want my life to be. And so instead of running away from like those hard times, and I tell this to my clients all the time, is to ask yourself like, okay, like what is this lesson teaching me at the moment, right?
Oh, I love that.
And I like to compare life as a game, because if you think about it, we are playing this life game,
Yeah.
right? And most people don't understand it, and they get so emotional when really, if you just take yourself out of it and look at life objectively, you're playing a video game, right? And like the player in the video game is not like constantly doubting themselves, like, oh my God, like I can't go over this hump, right? Like, so it's just like you have to approach your life in that way, and it's not about your feelings so much, but it's more so of like, okay, how can I get to that next level, right? Like, what do I have to maneuver? What challenges do I need to understand as a person in order for me to get there?
Yeah. And it's almost like it's one foot in front of the other. Like, it's about removing the emotional self and what you believe life should be, accepting it for what it is, and then be like, okay, well, what's the best outcome? What's the best possible outcome from this situation? How can I get there? And it's like one step in front of the other. Like, I don't think that I would be the happy, strong person that I am today if I didn't go through horrific things.
Oh, for sure.
And I think a lot of people can agree with that. And like that quote up there, it's not what happens, it's how you deal with it. That was from my mom.
Aww.
And she legit ingrained that in my brother and I's heads. Like, she was like, it is not the situation. It's not what happens. It's how you deal with it.
Yeah.
And like how you deal with it says much more about your character and who you are as a person and how you handle adversity than anything else.
Oh, yeah. Well, do you mind if I interrupt you there? Because I just thought of something that was brilliant off of what you just said, right? So growing up, that's not what I was taught. Growing up, what I was taught was like, you need to be perfect. You need to have straight A's. And so like as a child, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, right? Where they think that like achievement is like the number in your bank account, or achievement is like the number of followers, right? They measure success. Yeah. And I get it. It's very logical.
Yeah, but it's fine to measure success.
Oh yeah, for sure. But here's the thing. Why not measure the number of times that you show up and implement a habit, right? Why not measure the amount of times you like create content, right? Sometimes like if you're measuring only the end result, then you're not seeing how much of a growth that you've created like throughout like the years or the months or whatever the case may be. So, just to say, like, I just feel like instead of trying to be so hard on yourself and being perfect, it's more about like, how are you showing up, right? And stepping into that.
People don't realize that, we're talking about life as a game, and it's like there's one main character. Everyone's so focused on everyone else, and like it's interesting because we're having differences in the way that we were brought up, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you are across the board. Everyone's going to say, well, I wish I had this. I wish I had this type of parent. I wish I had this type of love. I wish I had this type of life circumstances or situations. And at the end of the day, you're wasting your time. It's like there's no comparison. There's no need for jealousy or for wishing that you had something that you didn't. Like, you were dealt the cards that you were dealt. And in reality, people don't realize that everyone has struggles.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's a huge piece of, like, really owning who you are. And, I just did a podcast the other day. It was, like, one of the best ways to create real confidence and real happiness and, like, love within yourself is to not just accept the things that you are, but accept and own the things that you're not.
Yes.
That's how you can embody being you and empower yourself.
Exactly. I believe that, based off of what you're saying, like most people are you're right, so focused on other people, but we chose our parents. Like, I really believe that, like, before we came into this world, we chose our parents. And you may be thinking, like, why would I choose that parent, right? Or why would I choose, especially with my dad's money mindset.
I think it's a lesson to learn.
Oh, man. For sure. That's what I'm saying. Like, these are lessons that we need to learn as people, and it's, like, part of our karma.
Yeah.
And so
I think relationships play a huge role, too. Like,
yes.
Like, everyone's had a bad relationship, and it's like, well, why? Where does this come from? And I think it kind of plays into that. Like, you have this karmic learning that you have to do. And you're put around people that are, like, I know one of the coolest things I've ever experienced is, like, when I really started building authentic relationships. And not that I didn't have authentic relationships for most of my life, but really when I moved out here, it was like, what are your fears? Like, why do you not feel loved? Why do you not feel like you're enough? And we had these conversations, and it was like, what's the worst thing someone said to you? What's the worst thing someone's done to you? And it's like, whoa. You realize that you're getting on such a deeper level of who you are as a human being and what you need out of a relationship and love. And I talk about this with just friendships, right? And recognizing where your friends need extra love and extra support, where they need to be encouraged, where you need to make fun of them and make light of things. Like, I think that that's all part of the beauty of life, and it's part of the learning that should happen in a lifetime in order to make it the one. Like, I did this life exactly how I wanted to do it. And I think that, like, that just got me on that, like, thought of so many people miss that. They miss the fact that your parents don't need to be perfect. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to fuck up. Like, I can't tell you how, like, I have a crazy life story. And so I'll have people all the time be like, well, I experienced, some trauma, some tough things, but nothing compared to you. And I'm like, don't ever say that again.
Right.
I was like, don't compare your trauma to my trauma.
Yeah.
Yours is enough and valid just on its own. And it's always deeper than people think. And a lot of stuff happens with parents. And it makes them think like, well, what if I was raised differently? What if I had different parents? And it's like, at the end of the day, every parent does their absolute best.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing. They're trying to do better than the last generation.
Yeah, and I think that like our parents, our challenges are designed just for us, right? Our parents are made just for us, or we chose our parents, like I said. So it's like everything is perfect the way it is. Yeah. The reason why it's not perfect is your mindset around it, or it's your thoughts around it. And so it's like, stop looking outside of yourself, right? Whenever there's like something that's going on, instead of looking outward for like a solution, always turn inward, because everything that is outside is only a reflection of what's going on in the inside.
That's a whole nother lesson in and of itself, that everyone is a reflection of you. And it took me a while to realize that. I was like, no, what do you mean?
Yeah, I talk about it in the book though. I really do. Yes. Yeah.
What, okay, because I know it in the sense of like, sometimes it's you hate the things in others that you wish to disguise or get rid of in yourself. And you also praise the things. Like, it's always so funny because when you know it, then you recognize it. Like, what your friends will compliment you or other people in their lives on, those are the things that they also love, whether it's about themselves or their family or whoever. Like, I have a friend that's always like, oh my God, you have the most beautiful eyes. And she loves eyes. Like, she loves her eyes. She loves everyone's eyes. Like, it's just like a beautiful gate to the soul for her.
Right.
And I love that. So how do you explain it in the book?
So I explain it in the last chapter, and the last chapter is a really like heartfelt one for me, because I had to learn this lesson when I was actually going to a meditation class here in LA. And that experience, basically what happened was that the meditation teacher was annoying me, and I couldn't understand why. I was like sitting in the class and I'm like, why is this teacher annoying the shit out of me? And I knew that if it was annoying me, that must meant that there was something within me that was annoying myself, right? Yeah.
And especially a meditation teacher, you're like, oh yeah, probably really nice and not doing anything triggering. So what's going on deeper that this is like, I am affected by this,
right? And I think it was because like the way she was behaving to me, I was judging her, right? I was judging the way she was teaching us. I was judging the way she was showing up. And then it wasn't until I came out of the class and I was like hanging out in the lounge area, and there was like some like jewelry like that they set up to sell, and there was a mirror there, and then right above the mirror, it was funny because I was like looking at the jewelry. And I'm like really into butterflies. Butterflies is a sign for me that the universe is like teaching me something or showing me something. So I saw this butterfly necklace hanging right by the mirror, and on the mirror it literally said like, we're all reflections of each other. And it like totally, and that's also why I left it at the end of the chapter, or the end of the book, was because I was like, holy shit, like the universe is literally speaking to me like at this moment, that like that woman was just a reflection of what I didn't like about myself.
Wow.
And it was showing up, and I was getting annoyed, and it was because deep down, like I was still working on those things. And so I really challenge everyone that's listening that if you're feeling annoyed by someone, or if something annoys you, like it has nothing to do with the other person. They're just really shining and holding up a mirror for you to see like, okay, what do you need to work on? Wow. Like what's annoying to you, to yourself.
And that's so deep. Like that takes such a level of self-awareness to like stop yourself and what you're feeling and be like, this is valid, but where is it coming from?
Yeah.
And then to look inward and be like, one of the questions I ask myself that helps so much is like, where is this showing up in your life? Like how, because sometimes you're just like, your immediate response is like, that's not me. Like, I'm not that meditation teacher. We're so different. It's not a me thing. It's a her thing.
Right.
And you have to sit there and just ask yourself like, well, if it was, where would it show up? Like, if I had to make a connection, where would I make it? Like, where could I somehow see that this was a reflection of me instead of
Yeah. And sometimes you have to
it's
think
so-
about it. It's not like an immediate thing, right? Especially since
you
like
sit on it for a second.
yeah, I feel like everyone is different. Like I feel like I'm pretty self-aware. So if someone annoys me, like I can think about it and it's like, okay, that's the reason.
Yeah.
My partner, for example, like he's not as again, it's not I just think that everyone's different, right?
Yeah,
And so,
everyone's built different.
right. And
for
so
sure.
he takes a while to like, oh shit, like that's why, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why, you know, in my book I talk about the 3 pillars. The first one is your money mission, your second one is your abundant mindset, and the third one is your financial environment. So I believe that you need 3 of those pillars in order for you to achieve success. And so money mission is really about understanding how you are, understanding how money works, and how you can become an energetic match to money based off of like, again, who you are, right? And then the second pillar is about obviously your mindset, and you know, my book talks more about that. And then the last pillar is your financial environment, and that's the one thing that I feel like not a lot of people talk about.
I wouldn't, even the words financial environment, I feel like doesn't come up.
Yeah.
So what's in there? What's some of the I know you've talked about Feng Shui. How, for the people that don't understand it, because I always like to at least open that up. It's like for the people that are like, it's something like astrology. They're just like, that makes 0 sense. That's woo woo, whatever. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Could you explain Feng Shui to someone who maybe has no idea? They're like, I mean, I've heard of it. I don't really know. I've never partaken or used it or like even thought anything about it. So
Yeah.
how would you explain it to someone who really has no information?
Yeah, so to put simply, I really believe that Feng Shui is just like your 3D environment and how it affects your subconscious mind, right? So, you know, if we get into Feng Shui really deeply, then it's all about like understanding the energies of each year and all that stuff. So I try to keep it simple in my book. I keep it really simple, but essentially like our environment is a 3D vision board.
Yeah.
We wake up and we see the things around us and it's subconsciously being stored, right? That's also why we create vision boards, right? But what about your actual environment? It plays a role because we're all energy.
Yeah.
And
everything's energy.
Exactly. And I talk about this in my book, but essentially like, you know, even with water, like I don't know if you heard about, I forgot his name, but he's a doctor that basically did a test on water, and then he was like saying like horrible things to like one cup, and it like molded into like these different shapes that were gross, and then the other cup, like he said beautiful things. So it's just even like spoken word, even like just your energy everywhere affects you as a person.
Yeah.
And most people, when they want to try to make money, they're like, okay, let me change my mindset and let me figure out what my purpose is. But then it's like they're forgetting that their environment plays such a huge role.
Yeah.
It's like the people you surround yourself with. But it's not just that, it's your home. Like,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
like
where you
everything
live.
you do.
Yeah.
And it's everything that you do, everything that you have, and then the things that are then associated with that. Like, one of the ways that I always explain energy for people that are like, I don't really get it, I don't really understand, is you've walked into a room where you've seen a friend or whatever, and you can tell they're angry, you can tell they're upset, and you just go, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
And you can't logically explain it.
Yeah, and you're just like,
Right.
And you chalk it up to, I know this person and I know something's wrong, but like, I've been in a line at a supermarket and it's like, you can tell like someone's about to cry. You're like, they're having a tough day.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell those little things, and like, at the end of the day, that is energy. And I know maybe sometimes you need to explain it on extremes in order for people to get it, but it's like, if you live in a horrible neighborhood where there's tons of violence and tons of issues, you're going to sleep differently at night. You have a different level of alertness. You have a different level of safety than somebody who's living in a safer community.
For sure. I mean, I feel like that's obvious, but to a lot of people it's not, you know? And even just think about this. Like, a very simple explanation is just thinking about walking in an alleyway, right? Like, why do you feel like scared, or why do you feel like kind of like you need to protect yourself, right? It's not like you've seen it, like it's literally this vibe that you get even when you
depending on where you're at, you know when you're unsafe.
Exactly.
You know when you're like, I'm in an area right now that I shouldn't be.
Right. It's like a feeling and it's a vibe, and yes, it may sound really woo woo, but like if you were to ask, let's say like a farmer like back in the Stone Age, like, hey, we're gonna invent like an iPhone, or hey, we're gonna have blue light blocker glasses, they're gonna be like looking at you like what the fuck are you talking about?
Like, what?
Exactly. They're like, okay, this person's woo woo, and then now we have it, so it's kind of like we're going into that.
It makes so much
era.
sense too, because like we're talking about it in a back alley or being in a bad neighborhood or living in a bad neighborhood. And we're talking about it in that sense. But it's also in the sense of like, have you ever walked into somebody's house and you're like, oh, this is really messy, or oh, this is really chaotic, or oh, they have like 7 kids and I grew up like 2. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. And then you walk in somewhere and you're like, oh, they're 2 entrepreneurs living at home working their business. Like, they're super productive and everything around us seems productive. Like, you can feel the energy. You can feel the difference of situations and what a home can bring.
Yeah, and
right?
that also explains why, excuse me.
Go ahead, you're good.
I choked on the matcha.
It's not my fault, I swear. I swear it's good.
So why do you throw away your ex's stuff? Think about that. Like, why, when you like break up with someone, like, why do you feel the urge to like
purge things,
to throw
to
away
get rid of things?
Yeah, it's because that item carries energy, right? Like, when you look at it, you are reminded of that person.
And energy.
Exactly. So it's like, I had a client that was in one of my programs, and she was like, the moment I threw away my ex's stuff, like, money started coming in, and like opportunities started coming in, and that was like a block for her.
So everybody needs to throw away their ex's stuff.
Exactly.
If you have anything, toss that shit. Right? Burn it.
But it's true. Like, why? Like, why would you keep something that reminds you, especially if it's bringing you down?
What's
right?
what's the lady? Marie something?
Marie Kondo?
Is that it? Her. Is it? Okay, I don't know. But isn't she the one that has the principle, if you look at something and you don't love it, you're like, I love that. Yeah. There's something to it, that minimalist documentary that's on Netflix, that inspired me to be more conscious of the things that I bring into my home and the things that I choose. And I grew up in a family where it was like, you just bought the cheapest version of whatever. You're like, well, that's the best deal. That's how I gauged things, was, well, this table was the cheapest one, so I bought this one. And I mean, now I don't do that. And that even alone has been such a huge shift, because now I buy the table off of value. Mm-hmm. Is this the one that I'm looking for? Is this the color I want? Is this the size that I want? Right? Is this the one that I love? Right. Versus, I just need to get it. Let's just get this. Yes, exactly. Especially in your home, because it's the littlest of things, but I know that there's certain things that I bought, in, like my record player. Mm-hmm. Obsessed. Mm-hmm. Obsessed.
I know. But your obsession.
It brings me so much happiness and so much joy and so much love. And I'm so happy I did it, because I wanted it for so long and I just pushed it off. And sometimes you realize the importance of doing the things that you want in a very little way. And I believe that the things in your home, the things in your surrounding, those are little ways, but it also makes me that much more likely to go after a career or a job or a deal that I want. Oh, yeah. Like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So me getting, like, the best record player, the one that I wanted, my favorite, whatever the case may be, that then carries on and flows over into all areas of my life.
Yep.
He's just like, yep.
You said it, like, exactly perfect. So
all because of my record player. Who would have thought?
No, I know. And when you told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's on point, right? Like, everyone has their own thing that makes them happy. Mm-hmm. You know, some people, it may be like LV bags, or some people it may be like Lamborghinis. Like,
I think that's important too, is to know yourself.
Yeah.
Like, know what makes you happy. Like, cars make me really happy because I spend hours just aimlessly driving, listening to music. It's like my thing. And that, like, to me, buy a nice car, that makes sense.
Yeah. But
for somebody that doesn't care, like, there's so many things to invest your money in. Mm-hmm. Invest your money in the things that make you the most happy. Yep. Do the things that make you the most happy. I think a lot of people get lost there, and they're like, well, I'm supposed to buy the nice clothes, and I'm supposed to buy the house or the condo or the car or whatever, and it's like, do you even like that shit?
I had a friend growing up when I was in in middle school. Her dad was like a millionaire, right? But if you saw him on the street, he did not look like he looked like a homeless guy. But like, he loved his like holy t-shirts, and it's just like, that's what makes him happy. It's like spending money on properties or whatever the case may be. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, don't judge a book always by its cover, because you never know. Like, literally, if you met him, you would never guess he's a millionaire.
And I love that, because that's him being him. Yeah. Like, everybody that's listening to this, it's like, you have to do the things that work for you. Like, for him, buying like a super high-end suit, he's like, that is the biggest waste of money ever.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody would say, this is what I've worked so hard for.
So it's understanding you and being okay with you and just embodying you instead of having to like copy someone else or like be in someone else's energy.
I love it. So with this beautiful book, what would make this book a success? What is the ultimate goal of this book? It's
definitely to get it into the hands of as many people as humanly possible.
Yeah. And then what?
And then what?
What's the even, like it's one of those things that's like, oh, my daughter would be proud of this.
Yeah.
Like, what's that end goal one day for the readers? Like, what do you wish for the readers?
You know, for me, it goes so deep because it's not just for my daughter, but it's for, and I say minorities because I'm a minority, right? And so I just know there's so many minorities that are struggling with money. And for me, my biggest gift is for them to be able to read this book and know that it's possible for them, that it's not their current situation, but they can actually design a life that they love. And so I hope that this book gives them hope, right? And it's not just like, okay, like that, and a minority that's Asian that maybe like they look up to see like, okay, it's possible for her, so it's also possible for me.
Sometimes you need to see it. Sometimes you really need to see it. And then I love that in this book you're also giving them the tangible tools to then do it.
Yeah.
Because that's what, you know, that chick, here she is, $0 to $45,000. Like, that's a testament to the work that you've already done, the work that you continue to do, and the work that you'll do through this book.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And where can they find this?
So you can check out my website. You can find us on Amazon.
Yep.
Definitely get it on Amazon if you have a Kindle. Get the hard copy if you have to.
Definitely get the hard copy. It's soft.
It is so nice.
Very high quality, very beautiful.
Yes.
I'm excited to read this. Thank you for bringing this for me.
You're so welcome.
Oh my God.
Yay.
All right. And I'll link everything below. That way, whatever people, however they want to consume this book, they will.
Yeah, I also included a free audiobook
Kendrick Lamar,
as well.
I'm dead. There's a quote from Kendrick Lamar in here. You're easily my favorite author. Stop chasing, start attracting. Available everywhere.